You got this, Coach!
So sorry about your coach.
Oh my God!
Forfeit.
Move over, lifeguard from Lilo and Stitch, Elastigirl, Garnet. Coach Greer is... Coach Greer is in. Twitter has been frothing at the mouth over a Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur episode that Disney chose to put on hold. It was leaked a few days ago though, and has had everyone both fuming and thirsting since. So let's find out what the fuss is together. So, the episode, called The Gatekeeper, starts with the Squirrels volleyball team, Lunella and Co.'s school team, getting ready for their rival team to arrive for a home game. Coach Herbeck warns of their ferocity. They're not to be trifled with, especially their
Extra thick!
leader, Coach Greer. But when they arrive...
Who wants orange slices?
Oh, really?
Oh, so far, so good, I guess. Brooklyn sits down and reminisces about how the orange slices remind her of her old football days when she used to have to play on the boys' team.
Boys team. Boys team. Boys team.
Coach Greer then pulls aside the Squirrels coach Herbeck to let him know that Brooklyn is in fact trans and playing on the girls' team nonetheless.
A boy. Coach, is something wrong with your eyes?
No, I'm just trying to communicate that what you're saying isn't news and also that I don't care.
But that's not fair. This is a girls' volleyball league. Only girls can play.
Brooklyn is a girl.
Only he's not bothered. But on his way out of the room, Coach Herbeck slips on one of the discarded orange slices on the floor and is out of commission, leaving the Squirrels without a coach. Greer is delighted to remind the team that, without a coach, a team of unsupervised children cannot play. However, Brooklyn steps in as player coach, already being team captain, and Greer is unable to do anything about it but nitpick Brooklyn's gear needlessly to try to trip her up on something. The show wants to make it really clear that Greer is a stickler for the rules to a needless, obsessive, ridiculous degree. But it doesn't work, so Coach Greer takes matters into her own hands, locking the team in the changing room. And without a team on the field, Casey can only stall for time because otherwise it's game over, there's no match, and the Squirrels forfeit.
Devil, get your big beautiful body over here, toot sweet! The halftime show just became the pre-game show.
The team inside the locker room, however, is baffled to find that this isn't the changing room as they know it.
Hello, and welcome to my game. Small hint, this room is not the same. First, kindly look for clues. To get out, you must follow my rules. Play fair and you will see 20 keys will set you free.
This is a virtual escape room for which they have to solve various puzzles and trials to attain the 20 keys needed to escape, and they have to do it pretty quickly or else they'll never make it to the game. But this is one of those episodes where superhuman strength is the key to saving the day. Brooklyn beasts it, and pretty much manages to single-handedly solve all the puzzles and brave all the increasingly perilous tasks the room presents her with in order to obtain the whopping 20 keys they needed. So, the final key goes into the lock, it's all done, and then they're back in the same room again. Brooklyn figures this out too. Part of Coach Greer's rules are that only girls can play.
Come on! Let us out!
But we did everything right!
No, we didn't. It's like creepy hologram Greer said. To get out, you must follow my rules. I'm trans. My very existence breaks Greer's rules. Which means, as long as I'm a member of this team, we'll never escape.
This is portrayed as something unreasonable and something to smash. In this case, literally, as the team gets going on not playing this unfair game. The team smashes their way out of this trap to make it at last to the sports hall. Obviously, Coach Greer is shocked and horrified that they actually made it out. Did she expect them to die? I mean, there was lava by Key 2. Princess Carolyn is then escorted out after Brooklyn shatters her key and gives her victory line to the villain.
Oh, and remember when I said I was on the soccer team?
And the game carries on with 2 new player coaches, and the battle is won. And that's it, that's where our episode ends. The fact that this episode is on hold is emblematic of a toxicity problem. Never mind the issues of how to handle women's safety in single-sex spaces, or how to handle violence against trans or gender non-conforming people, the topic of being trans at all has become so noxiously political that a discussion is no longer welcome. Attempts to debate this, trans athletes in women's sport, are met with standard bullying and abuse tactics over and over and over. To be honest, I was a little scared to put out this video because of how particular people respond to women especially dissenting on this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Female sports are for those born and still living as female, for girls and women. Though I think there's scope to argue against single-sex categories in certain sports, at early ages, and different solutions to single-sex changing rooms, and so on. This episode doesn't do that, so I won't go into it either. The primary problem with this episode isn't, however, that it's wrong, or that I happen to disagree with its conclusion. The problem is that the only way they handle an extremely sensitive and current topic is by portraying the other side as a cartoonish villain.
Those aren't regulation knee pads!
Actually got them from the league for Pride Month.
What's in this?
Water.
When Coach Greer locks the squirrels in a sci-fi escape room version of the locker room to stop them from playing, because they have a trans girl on the team, the point is that her rules are unnecessary, unfair, and restrictive.
I'm trans. My very existence breaks Greer's rules.
Girl power is even used in a mocking context, as Coach Greer pulls a ridiculous face after being combative with Brooklyn and slides off screen, like that was a ridiculous thing to say in this context. I mean, the worst it is a little cringe, I guess. If you view Coach Greer's position
This is a girls' volleyball league. Only girls can play.
as a bigoted position to hold, the original Proud Family show is a much better example of how to handle this. I'm talking about this more in a future video, but in the episode She's Got Game, Penny wants to play American football. She's great at it actually, and she loves it, but lacking a girls' team, she tries to sign up for the school's existing team, which happens to be all boys. Throughout the episode, we get a few different misogynistic responses to Penny, ranging from the catty to the understandable. Frankie, a classmate and team member, slings sexist mud at Penny when she bests him in a friendly game, and tries asking her out off the back of that.
I didn't want to take a teammate to the homecoming dance.
Are you insulting me and asking me out at the same time?
Well, I didn't really mean it that way.
I mean, shoot your shot, I guess? He apologizes at the end of the episode, admitting to feeling intimidated, and Penny is apparently more gracious than I am because she agrees to a dance with him. Coach Collins doesn't like the idea of his team changing. It's for boys, that's the way he likes it.
No, I'm here to try out for the football team.
Sure, baby doll. You tried. Now get off the field before you get hurt.
He only lets Penny off the bench during the big game at the end because he was forced by a court to let her on the team, and then forced by a lack of uninjured players to send her out. Only then, when she's smashing it, does he seem happy to see her out there. Penny's dad, Oscar, is worried about his daughter's safety and doesn't care if that makes him seem like a sexist. Penny's safety is much more important to him. He also doesn't think American football is an appropriate sport for a girl or a woman.
Come on. The game of football is like what James Brown said. It's a man's world!
But in the end, he's just excited to see Penny play, and comforts her lovingly when it all goes wrong. She's Got Game wasn't a perfect episode, but this worked better than The Gatekeeper, because not only is it treating the other side as another side, even if immensely flawed, and not some crazed villainous conspiracy that's evil for the sake of being evil, but also because including logical antagonistic responses, not necessarily correct ones, not necessarily morally palatable, but logical responses, makes it seem real. You can see how a human being could earnestly say some of the things that are said to Penny.
I'm fast and I'm good.
No.
I've seen her play. Girls got game.
No. The girl's got girl game. And she'll be crying like one as soon as she gets hit.
Are you saying only a boy can take a hit?
I'm saying there's no pain like football pain.
Oh yeah? What about childbirth?
No.
The same cannot be said of Coach Greer.
Wonderful. Lady Leopards, warm-up time! Girl power!
Coach Greer is a straw man. It also feels like the writers of The Gatekeeper go out of their way to make Coach Greer seem unreasonable in this way, because it's really, really hard to have any conversation about trans athletes in girls' sports without even fleetingly touching on safety. Instead, our episode paints Coach Greer saying that this is a girls' match as some outlandish, unreasonable expectation. There's an extremely conspicuous gap here. The fact that they did their best to make Coach Greer seem ridiculously unjust on this issue issue, and still failed, just highlights how untenable a position it is to dismiss all people who say trans athletes shouldn't be in female sports as inherently evil. Like there's no possible way to rationally hold that stance. There very obviously is. Additionally, there's no room for reconciliation here. Brooklyn bemoans how people like Coach Greer despise her existence.
It's just, how many doors? How many doors do I have to break through until they stop locking me out? I'm so tired.
All for not wanting you on the girls' team? Obviously, locking the kids in a wild escape room and being rude to Brooklyn isn't good or needed at all and breaks a lot of laws. But the escape room with its girls-only rule serves to symbolize, and not very subtly, Brooklyn being unfairly shut out of things because she's trans. And look at how this episode ends, with a biological male, Brooklyn, almost about to boot a biological female. If you wanted to give actual anti-trans rhetoric more ammo, you've done it. Good job. I'd also like to note the use of stereotyping in this episode. Coach Greer is the living embodiment of a Karen, is the only white person to have any agency in this whole story, complete with the Pixar mom build, and a whiny disposition. It's not just Coach Greer though, but also Brooklyn. In the context of the episode, it's understandable that Brooklyn is upset. After being the only person doing all the work to get the 20 keys needed to escape the room, I mean, only person, honestly. Step up. Understandable though her frustration might be, there's something about the only trans girl in the entire episode, in the entire plot, also being the only character to burst into a violent rage and smash so hard at the ground that the virtual escape room starts cracking.
And that just gets me just really so angry!
Brooklyn!
It just makes me think of all the worst videos out there regarding what's seen as trans rep online. You know what I mean.
It is
I don't think that's the image the writers intended to portray, but there you go. When I review a bad episode like The Gatekeeper, I like to think of what could make it a good one. Maybe, instead of this being about Coach Greer, the episode could be about her daughter Bella, who is highlighted but who barely says a line, feeling unsafe about having Brooklyn in a sporting context. Maybe it's a contact sport where physical differences really matter. You could have Brooklyn feeling some kind of way about Bella reacting to her, and you could have Bella feeling some kind of way about the social pressure that's placed on her to not feel unsafe around Brooklyn at all. And if you wanted, you could explore this delicate dynamic that way and maybe have them come away from each other having learned something and having grown closer as teammates. That's just one idea. Let me know what you think in the comments. Side note, I haven't seen anyone talk about Ty yet in the context of this episode.
That's exactly how I felt when I asked people to use different pronouns for me. Was that a burden?
Of course not.
Exactly.
Most people not going by she or her are not girls, so if Ty isn't a girl, it's a little odd that Coach Greer only has something to say about Brooklyn. She didn't seem to know about Brooklyn though until Brooklyn herself said something, so maybe there's nothing there. I don't know. Just a note. I don't know if this episode should have been withheld, to be honest. One of the reasons I make Proud Family reboot videos about the unreasonable episodes,
Do something with your white privilege!
because there are ones that are fine, is because it's important to draw attention to what's being funded enough to get made by big companies like Disney, especially when it's for kids, and particularly when it's wrong or bad faith. If you just sit there and don't make any noise when you don't like something, you're never going to get a different product. But at least The Gatekeeper is out there online now, even if it was leaked, which of course isn't ideal. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is usually very whimsical and actually quite level-headed in its handling of social issues, so it surprised me to see clips of this episode circulating. Both the subject matter itself and the very poor handling of it belongs to a series like Louder and Prouder more than this one. If you like the comics especially, I'd urge you to still watch it. It's a really visually beautiful show, and I'll still go to bat for this series for a number of reasons, because one bad episode doesn't make a bad show. As for the social issue of The Gatekeeper itself, I personally hope common sense prevails. The rights of women and girls and the rights of trans women aren't mutually exclusive, but media like this tries its best to pit the two against each other. Look through Twitter if you dare to see how bad the vitriol being spewed out has become. Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, be sure to keep an eye out for my next one. I know it's rough out there and it feels impossible to discuss these topics sometimes, even offline, but just know that whether you agree with me or not, that doesn't make you my enemy. Until next time, bye-bye!
such a bad bitch, though. I would fuck the shit out of that.
Transphobe.